I sat across from him, the evening light casting long shadows across the room. The silence between us had grown so thick, I could almost taste it. I could feel his eyes on me, but I refused to meet his gaze. He had been quiet for weeks now, his tiredness not just physical but deep in his bones. I knew it, and I resented it. It was hard to ignore the way his shoulders slumped, the way his worn clothes clung to him like a reminder of his failure to live up to the image I once had of him. He was no longer the man I married, the ambitious, hopeful man who promised me the world. I had grown tired of pretending that everything was okay, tired of putting on a smile and convincing myself that we were fine. It wasn't fine. He was struggling, and it was becoming painfully obvious that he wasn't going to be the provider I had once imagined him to be. I hated how that made me feel, like I was stuck with a dream that was fading before my eyes. "You're never home anymore," I said, my voice tinged with frustration, the words falling out before I could stop them. "I can't even remember the last time we did anything together. It's like you're a ghost, just drifting through life. What happened to us?" He didn't answer at first, just stared down at his hands, his fingers twitching nervously. The man who used to have an answer for everything had become a stranger to me. He had always been a hard worker, putting in long hours at his low-paying job to try and make things better for us. But no matter how hard he tried, it never seemed to be enough. And I couldn't pretend that I didn't notice. "You don't even care anymore, do you?" I pushed further, my voice rising without me realizing it. "Look at you. Look at the way you've let yourself go. You're too poor to be a real husband." The words hung in the air like a weight, heavy and unrelenting. I could see his body stiffen, a flicker of hurt crossing his face. For a moment, I felt a twinge of guilt, but it was quickly drowned out by my own anger. He wasn't the man I married. He wasn't the man I had envisioned spending my life with. The dreams I had of a future, of stability, of living in a house we could call our own, were slipping away, and I couldn't pretend it didn't bother me anymore. He finally looked up at me, his eyes dull, the spark of ambition that used to shine in them now replaced by something else. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was resignation. I wasn't sure. He didn't say anything at first, and I waited for him to respond, to fight back, to defend himself. But instead, he just let out a heavy sigh, his shoulders slumping even further. "I'm doing my best," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm trying, but it's hard. I don't know what you want from me anymore." His words hit me like a slap in the face. The man I had once looked up to, the man I thought I would spend my life with, was now apologizing for not being enough. And in that moment, I realized how much I had changed. I no longer saw him as my partner, my equal. I saw him as a failure. And that disgusted me. "You're not enough," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "I need more than this. I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it's not. I need a husband who can stand beside me, not someone who's constantly falling behind." His face hardened then, the disappointment in his eyes clear as day. I had never seen him look at me like that before. There was a coldness in his expression that sent a chill down my spine. It was like he had finally accepted what I had been too proud to admit: he wasn't the man I wanted him to be. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice steady but tinged with something I couldn't place. "I can't keep trying to be something I'm not. I'm sorry." I stared at him, unable to speak. I wanted to scream, to demand that he stay, to tell him that I needed him. But I couldn't. The words wouldn't come. The truth was, I had already made up my mind. I had already decided that he wasn't enough for me. That he would never be enough. I watched him stand up, his movements slow and deliberate. He didn't look back as he grabbed his jacket and walked out the door. The sound of the door closing behind him felt final, like the last nail in the coffin of what had once been our marriage. And as the silence settled over the room, I realized that I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. Days passed, then weeks, and still, there was no sign of him. No calls, no texts. Nothing. At first, I tried to convince myself that he needed space. He had always been the quiet type, someone who preferred to retreat into himself when life got overwhelming. But as the silence stretched on, I began to feel the weight of his absence more and more. The house felt empty without him. The sound of his footsteps, once a constant in the background of my life, was now gone. I couldn't escape the hollow feeling that gnawed at me. I told myself I wasn't worried. That he was just processing everything. That he'd come back when he was ready. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. I had pushed him too far. I had pushed him to the point where even he could no longer justify staying in a marriage that was so full of disappointment and resentment. My pride had been too strong, and I had shattered something that was beyond repair. Every time I walked into the living room, I expected to see him sitting there, his usual spot on the couch waiting for him. But it was always empty, just like everything else in our life. I missed the mundane things, the way he would hum softly under his breath while making dinner, the way he would ask about my day with genuine curiosity, even the way he would argue over the smallest things just to keep the conversation going. All of it was gone now, and all I was left with was the space he used to occupy. I told myself I didn't care. That I was better off without him. But every night, when I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I could feel the lie in my chest. I hated the loneliness that crept in, wrapping around me like a cold, suffocating blanket. It wasn't just that he was gone, it was that I had pushed him out. I had made it clear that he wasn't enough for me. And now I had to live with the consequences. There was a part of me that wanted to reach out. To pick up the phone, to send a message, to beg him to come back. But that part of me was buried under layers of pride and stubbornness. I couldn't admit that I had made a mistake. That I had ruined everything. I couldn't let him see how badly I was hurting. I had already told him he wasn't enough. How could I take that back now? So I did nothing. I waited, hoping that time would heal the wound I had created. But as the days turned into weeks, it became increasingly clear that this wasn't something that would simply fade away. His absence had changed everything. It was as if the world had tilted on its axis and I was struggling to find my balance again. I tried to distract myself with work, with friends, with anything that could fill the emptiness. But nothing worked. The thought of him, of what I had lost, kept creeping back into my mind. I would find myself wondering where he was, what he was doing, if he was thinking of me. But I knew deep down that he wasn't. If he had been, he would have called. He would have come back. One afternoon, after a long day of pretending that I was fine, I came home to find an envelope waiting for me on the kitchen counter. It was addressed to me in his handwriting. My heart skipped a beat as I reached for it, my fingers trembling as I opened it. Inside, there was just a single piece of paper, and on it, a short, simple note. "I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I've found someone who understands me, who doesn't expect more than I can give. I need to move on. I hope you find what you're looking for." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. My eyes blurred with tears, but I refused to let them fall. I couldn't. I had already pushed him away, already told him that he wasn't enough. He had finally reached his breaking point, and now he was gone for good. I stared at the letter for what felt like hours, the weight of it pressing down on me. The silence in the house felt deafening now, louder than it had ever been. I had never imagined that it would end like this. I had always thought there would be a way back, that if I just waited long enough, he would come to his senses and return. But now, reading those words, I knew that was never going to happen. He had moved on. And I was left with nothing but the pieces of a broken marriage and a shattered heart. I sat down on the kitchen floor, the letter still clutched in my hand, and let the tears finally fall. They came in waves, the weight of everything crashing down on me. I had been so focused on what I thought I needed, on what I thought I deserved, that I hadn't realized what I was losing. What I had lost. It was too late now. He was gone. And this time, there was no coming back. The days after the letter felt like a blur, each one indistinguishable from the next. I went through the motions of my life, trying to keep busy, trying to act like I was fine. But the truth was, nothing felt the same. I had lost him, and no matter how much I tried to deny it, I could feel the hole he had left inside me. I went to work, I socialized, I spent hours scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself from the gnawing emptiness that grew deeper each day. I thought I had everything figured out before. I had told myself I needed more, that I deserved someone who could provide for me in ways he couldn't. But now, without him, I was forced to confront the reality of what I had thrown away. I had pushed him out of our home, out of our life, because I thought his lack of financial success somehow meant he wasn't enough. And now, as the silence of our empty house pressed in on me, I realized how wrong I had been. The more I tried to focus on other things, the more I realized that the life I was living was hollow. I filled my days with work, with friends, with fleeting pleasures that never truly satisfied me. I had spent so much time convincing myself that I was better off, that I deserved more, that I had forgotten what truly mattered. What I needed wasn't a new car, a bigger house, or more expensive clothes. What I needed was him. And he was gone. There were nights when I would lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of my own breath in the silence of the room. I would imagine him in the other room, waiting for me, just like he used to. But the empty space beside me was a harsh reminder that he would never be there again. I wondered if he was happy. If he had found someone else who appreciated him, who didn't see his financial struggles as a reflection of his worth. I hoped that he had, even though it tore at me to think of him with someone else. He deserved happiness, even if it wasn't with me. One evening, a few weeks after receiving the letter, I was sitting on the couch, aimlessly flipping through the channels on TV. I didn't even know what I was looking for anymore, but I kept watching as the world outside my window continued to move on without me. The familiar sound of my phone buzzing broke the stillness, and I picked it up, half expecting it to be a message from him. But it wasn't. It was a text from my best friend, Sarah. "Hey, are you free tonight? I was thinking we could grab dinner and catch up. You've been awfully quiet lately." I stared at the message for a moment, unsure of how to respond. I hadn't seen Sarah in weeks, and the thought of pretending everything was fine made me feel sick. But I couldn't be alone, not tonight. Not when the weight of everything felt so unbearable. I typed out a quick response, agreeing to meet her, and within an hour, I was heading out the door. Dinner was a blur of polite conversation and forced smiles. Sarah did her best to keep the mood light, talking about her work and her latest dating adventures, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she knew something was wrong. She could always tell when something was bothering me. And tonight, it was obvious. She kept glancing at me, her eyes filled with concern, but I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to admit how badly I had messed up. "Are you okay?" she finally asked, her voice gentle but insistent. "You seem off. Like something's weighing on you." I took a deep breath, trying to push back the tears that threatened to spill over. I had spent so much time pretending I was fine, but now, with her sitting across from me, the facade felt fragile. "It's complicated," I said, my voice breaking. "I messed up, Sarah. I said things I didn't mean. I pushed him away, and now, he's gone. And I don't know how to fix it." Her expression softened, and she reached across the table, placing her hand on mine. "You can't change what happened, but you can make things right. If you truly want him back, you have to swallow your pride. You have to show him that you understand, that you're willing to change, too." I shook my head. "I don't think he'll come back. Not after everything I said." "You won't know until you try," she said quietly, her gaze steady and unwavering. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that there was still a chance to undo the damage I had caused. But in my heart, I knew it might already be too late. He had made it clear in his letter that he had moved on, that he had found someone who understood him. And as much as it hurt to admit it, I knew I had no right to ask him to come back. Not after everything I had done. The conversation shifted after that, but I barely registered the words. My mind was elsewhere, replaying everything over and over again. Could I fix this? Could I show him how much I had changed, how much I regretted pushing him away? Or had I already lost him for good? I didn't have the answers. But I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't keep living this way. The emptiness I felt was unbearable. And if there was even the slightest chance that I could repair what we had, I had to take it. I had to try. When I got home that night, the house felt even quieter than before. His absence was suffocating. I walked into the living room and sat down, staring at the spot where he used to sit. I closed my eyes, imagining him there beside me, telling me everything would be okay. But he wasn't there. He wouldn't be coming back. And that was the hardest truth to accept. The days that followed were a blur, a mix of sleepless nights and endless moments of self-reflection. I tried to pretend that I was fine, that life would somehow return to normal, but the reality was that something inside me had shifted irreparably. I spent more time than I cared to admit searching for him, on social media, in places we used to go, even asking friends if they had heard from him. But every attempt only served to remind me of the gaping hole he had left in my life. I realized that I had spent so much of our relationship thinking about what I wanted, about how much more I deserved, that I never took the time to really understand him. To see him for who he was, not just his job or his income, but the man who had loved me unconditionally, even when I had failed to do the same. I had been so fixated on his shortcomings, on the things I thought were missing, that I had overlooked the fact that what he gave me was more valuable than anything money could buy. But it was too late now, wasn't it? The silence in the house became unbearable, almost suffocating. The once familiar rhythm of our life was gone, replaced by the constant hum of my own thoughts, reminding me of everything I had lost. I had tried to move on, to convince myself that I was fine, but I wasn't. I missed him more than I could have ever imagined. The realization hit me like a wave crashing over rocks, hard and unrelenting. I had pushed him away, and now I was left with nothing but regret. I thought about the letter he had left behind, the one that had shattered everything in an instant. His words still haunted me. "I've found someone who understands me, who doesn't expect more than I can give." It was a simple sentence, but it carried so much weight. He had found someone else. Someone who saw him the way I should have. Someone who appreciated him, flaws and all. And that thought, knowing that he was out there, moving on with someone else, made my chest tighten with a pain I had never known. I couldn't stop thinking about Sarah's words. If you truly want him back, you have to swallow your pride. I had been so proud, so convinced that I was in the right. But in the end, it was my pride that had driven him away. If I wanted him back, I had to be honest with myself. I had to admit that I had made a mistake, that I had misjudged him, and that I was willing to do whatever it took to make things right. But how? How could I fix something so broken? How could I convince him that I was different now, that I had learned from my mistakes? He had already made it clear that he was moving on. So, what was the point of even trying? I spent a long time wrestling with those questions, but in the end, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to at least try. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. So, I took a deep breath and did something I never thought I would do. I called him. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. My heart was pounding in my chest as I waited, hoping, praying that he would pick up. But it went to voicemail. "Hey," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "It's me. I know it's been a while, and I'm sure you're not interested in hearing from me, but I need to say something. I've had time to think about everything, and I know I messed up. I was selfish, and I hurt you. I pushed you away when you didn't deserve it. I didn't see what was right in front of me, and I can't undo that. But if there's any chance that we could talk, that we could try to figure this out, I'd really like that." I hung up before I could second-guess myself. My hands were trembling, and my mind was racing with 100 different thoughts. What if he didn't call back? What if he had already moved on, and I was just clinging to a memory of a man who no longer existed? What if I was too late? The next few hours felt like days. I waited, hoping for some sign, some indication that he had heard me. But nothing came. I convinced myself that he wasn't going to call. That he had already made his decision, and I was just another chapter in his past. But then, just as I was about to give up, my phone buzzed. I looked down, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw his name on the screen. I hesitated for only a second before answering. "Hello?" "Hey," his voice was quiet, but there was something in it that I hadn't heard in a long time, softness, maybe even a hint of familiarity. "I got your message." My breath caught in my throat. "You did?" "Yeah," he replied. I didn't know what to think at first, but I've had some time to think too. I don't know if we can fix everything. I don't know if we can go back to what we were. But I've realized that I still care about you. I still think about you. My heart was racing now, the hope I had buried deep inside suddenly resurfacing. "I've changed," I said, my voice trembling. "I've realized so much since you left. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I know I can't undo the past, but I'd really like to try, if you're willing." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I thought he was going to hang up, to tell me it was too late. But then he spoke again, his voice steady, though still guarded. "I don't know what the future holds," he said, "but maybe we can start by talking. Maybe we can see where things go from there." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "That sounds good." And for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe there was a chance, however small, to rebuild what we had lost. The future was uncertain, and I didn't know if things would ever be the same. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was taking a step towards something better. Something real. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.